Well, good morning back to you today. We are delighted to have with us a very special guest today, Anni Cyrus. She's a former child bride from Iran, and today she's National Director of America Truth Project and the founder of liveuptofreedom.com. And there is a picture of their website, the landing page. You may want to check that out. So Anni Cyrus with us today. Anni, good to see you. Thanks for your time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Boy, so much to talk about in so little time, but your story is absolutely fascinating. You grew up in Iran, and what age were you forced into marriage?
I was barely getting to my 14. I wasn't 14 yet, but it was close enough to say I was about 14.
Wow. Tell us your story a little bit.
Sure. Well, technically, I was born and raised in Islamic Republic of Iran, or known as Iran. And I normally like to add the Islamic Republic to it, because many people in the West don't know that Iran was not an Islamic country, but rather it was conquered and turned into an Islamic country. And I was born after the revolution of the country. I was also blessed by a sheikh father who was an Islamic ruler and a mother who was a teacher of Quran. So I technically grew up in an Islamic country and inside a very religious family. With that, I pretty much, like any other girl in Islamic countries, I was pretty much announced and considered a full adult woman at age 9. And from there, I was told I'm responsible for my actions and I will face consequences. With that, I managed to get myself arrested, put in prison, lashed, beat up by my own father as punishment, and I ended up pretty much being sold as a child bride because I was just too much of a troublemaker. Like literally my father's idea was, you need to be somebody else's problem.
Wow. Hard for us to wrap our brain around that. You're talking about Sharia law in its hardest form. And I don't know if we understand that in the West, do we?
No. It's first of all, for two reasons, it's being misunderstood. See, there's one thing of not understanding something, and then there's a bigger problem where you're misunderstanding something. As far as Sharia goes in the West, especially in America, it's completely misunderstood. Because one, we do have those who are literally furthering the agenda of Islamization in America, which are basically pretending and twisting the truth about Sharia. The second reason is it is so completely far from our Constitution and American values that it's not even possible to tangibly grasp the idea for someone who was born and raised here in America.
So, Islam and Sharia law are synonymous?
No.
Okay.
Sharia, Islam is basically the building, and then Sharia is the walls and the windows and counters and rooms.
I think I understand. I think I understand that.
Basically, Islam has parts, has a little bit of religion into it, but Sharia, basically, if you translate the Sharia, the Arabic word, into English, it will translate into Islamic laws. So Sharia is a system of laws that was built around Islam.
Wow. When did you realize the predicament you were in, and what did you do?
To be honest, at age 9. The very first thing I was told at age 9, before even being announced as being a woman, was the fact that I had to learn all my prayer and call to prayer and everything related to my so-called religion. I had to learn them in language Arabic. Now, my mother tongue is Farsi. And right there, as a child, in my head, I couldn't understand what kind of God it is that created me, but expects me to be bilingual, and he can't speak anything but Arabic. That was my very first, okay, this is not making any sense. But right after less than a month after, when they called me a woman, and I saw the look in my father's eye of pride and joy that his little girl was just announced a woman and handed a certificate. Like literally by government, I was handed a certificate that I understand I'm a woman now. And I was told that I could become somebody's wife. That's when I realized this is it. This is a complete, I call it cult nowadays, but back then in my head, it was a prison. I'm a prisoner to this system that comes from the government, comes from my own family, comes from everybody. And obviously what I did was I tried to rebel against it. That's why I got myself in so much trouble. But I'm going to be honest with you. At some point, you just have no choice but to continue pretending to be one of them and do what they're asking you, or you're going to end up dead. My last moment when I realized I have to get away was after I was sold to marriage. One day after my so-called husband was done beating me, I got myself to a court hoping with, blood and dislocated shoulder and bruised face, a judge is going to just give me a divorce. And my answer was, maybe you should start obeying your husband so he doesn't have to beat you. Go home and make him happy. That was the moment I realized I'm going to end up dead by the hands of government or my husband or my father, and there's nothing anybody's going to do about it. So at that point, obviously, being blessed by an absolutely wise grandmother, he managed to get me a smuggler and get me smuggled out of the country, where I became a legal refugee in Turkey. But until that point, it was all knowing it's wrong, but at some point having to do what they're asking you to just survive.
Wow. I'm trying to process all this. This is amazing. So your grandmother gets you a smuggler and gets you to Turkey. Had you gotten caught anywhere along that line, you would have been killed?
Well, technically, here's what I was told by the smuggler. Your choice. If you're caught, you can run and make sure they shoot you because they shoot to kill, or you can be arrested, return to the country, and be either sued by your husband's family for adultery and be stoned to death, or sued by your father for dishonoring, and be killed in the name of honor killing. All three scenarios would end up in me dead. It was just my choice of, basically, I could pick my poison on how I would like to be killed, but yes, I would end up dead.
Somewhere along the line, the one true God is looking out for you.
Oh, absolutely. I have been asked many times, how did you get through it? And I said, even though I knew the God they introduced me to was not real, but I knew there is a real God somewhere. And I knew somehow, someday I'll reach him. And that's the thing. The survivor part isn't so much as I want to stay alive, because the life is so oppressive and so ugly. I mean, as a woman, even though you're a teenager girl, but as a woman, your life is nothing but being a servant to a man, and being raped every day, and being beat up every day, and being called a half a brain every day. So it's not so much of you want to continue living life. It's that hope in your heart that there is a God somewhere, the real God that I will find, and from there my life will be beautiful. That was the survivor in me. And thankfully I was. It took a little long, but I was finally saved by my true father.
Wow. I want to come to that part of your story. Let me just back up a little bit. I don't know if we in the West realize that this is an everyday occurrence in Iran, right? This kind of...
This is an everyday occurrence in every single 50 Islamic country. Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, you name them. They all have the same law, which is Sharia.
Iran, a couple of years ago, allowed the internet to be open. And a lot of young people begin to see that there's another world out there. Now they have clamped back down on it pretty hard for the obvious reason. And yet there's still some protesting going on. Is Iran in a cultural shaking right now?
Oh, absolutely. Right now, there is an actual civil war going on. I don't know if it's a proper English term, but basically there's a war between government and the people. And it's an actual war where every single day people are doing what they can to overthrow the regime. If you see that, I still have access to see videos and pictures coming from Iran, and you'll see every wall has graffitis or writings on them. No to Islam, no to Sharia. We won't obey to Muhammad. All those slogans are being written on every wall on the streets of Iran. They have reached that point that they're done. They just won't obey it anymore.
All right. So what does the leadership do? It sounds like the momentum's on the other side. What's your prediction?
To be honest, I have said it before. My prediction is if United Nations and other countries get behind the people of Iran, there's a very good chance of overthrowing the regime. But at this point, people cannot do it by themselves. First of all, we do not have Second Amendment in Iran.
Right.
Secondly, the regime is not some sort of a, they don't care for international view or vision. United Nations is behind them. They literally kill people randomly on the street or arrest them and hang them at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning. They are not going to consider what's going to come out of it. They continue killing people until they kill all of them. Back in 2005, the Supreme Leader of Islamic Republic of Iran stood by on a Friday morning prayer and said, "I dare any country to try to attack us. I have 72 million hostages and I'm not afraid to kill them." Back then, the population of Iran was 72. Today is 81 million. He has made it clear he's not afraid to kill the people of Iran to continue being in power. So by themselves, people can't do it. We need help. But it is doable to overthrow them.
Wow. One quick question before I take a break. What you felt in your heart as a hunger to find the one true God, I would assume, I mean, that is a God-given thing when he created us. And you know that now as being a believer. But I would assume that feeling's in the heart of a lot of other people in Iran, correct?
Absolutely. Right now, by far, the biggest growing convert in Iran is happening in underground churches. Huge number of Iranians are finally having the bravery to walk into churches and believe, even though they know they could be caught and killed next morning. But I had Iranians tell me, I'd rather be hung tomorrow morning as a true believer than a fake Muslim.
We hear stories of miraculous things. Muslims waking up, having dreams and visions of Jesus. Have you seen any of that?
Yes, I actually shared a stage in Chicago last year with a former Muslim speaker who had the same thing happen to him. As he was getting ready to leave in Syria to commit jihad, he had a dream. He woke up, walked away from the jihad plot, and became a true believer.
That in itself is such a huge miracle, Annie, because when that conversion takes place, that person already knows what the consequences is. It's everything, including family, right?
Everything. Yes.
Wow.
But here's what I always say. The only time you'll see the light is when you're fully in darkness. The darkest moment for a Muslim is when they are ready to commit jihad and kill innocent people in name of their Allah. That is as dark as it gets. That is when you see the light.
Wow. Let me take a quick break. Anni Cyrus is with us. She is the National Director of American Truth Project. You can go to liveuptofreedom.com is her website. Fascinating. When we come back, we'll find out how she made it to America. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back. What an honor to have with us today Anni Cyrus, former child bride from Iran. Her story is absolutely fascinating. Today, she's the National Director of American Truth Project. Her personal website is liveuptofreedom.com. A child bride. She's been raped, beaten, tortured, which, by the way, in Iran, people living under Sharia law, girls, is common. Her grandmother helps her to get a smuggler and gets her to Turkey. Pick up the story there, Annie. How did you get to America?
Well, I became a legal refugee in Turkey. My case was a little unique considering it was an underage girl with no guardian. So it took more than it normally should for me to legally receive asylum from United Nations. And then from there, I had a choice to pick my final destination, 3 countries to pick. And I always like to repeat this. I looked at the person who was in front of me, the United Nations lawyer, and I asked her, where can I go that has the ultimate freedom? And she was like, America. So I actually filled America, America, America for all 3 choices. She's like, you have to have second and third country. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere unless I'm going to be free. And thankfully, I was accepted by United States of America. However, it was the right after it was the September 11th, so there was another delay, which I did not mind. I understood why they had to do better screening of us coming from Middle East. But that delayed the process until on August of 2002, I finally received my ticket, flight to America, and a welcome package, welcome to United States. And that's how I got to America.
When did you come to Christian faith?
I don't know how to say officially. I would say about a year and a half ago. However, since I started speaking out, which was about 2-3 years after I made it to America, when I established my own, broken English and got a job to feed myself and understood the culture, when I started speaking out, I had many supporters and many friends telling me, you don't know it, but you are a true Christian. I wasn't understanding it well enough back then, but based on all of that, I would say very shortly after coming to America, which to my understanding is I started acting like a Christian and being a Christian because of the American values that teaches you, well, at least American values that were here 16 years ago. You know what I'm talking about. Before the whole movement started to destroy it, the American values are mainly Christian values.
Right.
So I learned that before I completely, I didn't announce it. I didn't come out saying it because I wanted to make sure I understand what I'm saying. I understand what I'm feeling. But that the conversion was about a year and a half ago.
Wow. Your video, The Solution to Stop Islam, you've gained over 1.4 million viewers. Tell us about that quickly.
Actually, I'm very glad you brought that up. That is the day that my full conversion happened. I was in a church in Chicago giving a speech, and I was talking about my father and his decision to hand me over to this stranger man. As my anger and inner child anger was building up, I felt this warm hand holding my heart and calming me down on that very church, that very day, as I'm speaking on that video. And from there, my speech completely changed from what normally was into, wait a minute, let's start by loving on these people and showing them the light rather than let's resist them and push them back. The biggest meaning that video has for me is the moment that I felt that there's a different way to deal with this problem rather than just building a wall between us and them. It did reach a lot of views. I personally like to think because of what happened to me on that stage, but on a technical term of it, Linda Sarsour got her hands on that video and put it out on one of her platforms, calling me Islamophobe, a fake, and a liar. And from there, that video just started going more and more viral, which I'm very happy. It is a good speech. It does have solution to the problem. Because that's a thing. A lot of people are starting to wake up to the problem, but they don't know what the solution is. And that video represents that gap. It's like, okay, so you know the problem. Here's the solution.
Yeah, and what happened in your own life? You had that heart tug. You had that emptiness, and God honored that and led you to Him, and that's the solution.
Exactly.
I wish I had you for about 2 hours, but I only got a couple of seconds left. I want to come back to something else to help us understand what is the rivalry between the Shiites and the Sunnis, and is that a civil war that's inevitable?
Yes. Here's a battle. Sunnis and Shias read the same Quran They believe in the same prophet being Muhammad. But when Muhammad died, the battle over power started. Ali, being Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law back then, said he should continue leading the Muslims and be the leader. Abu Bakr, the king of Saudi Arabia back then, said, no, I'm the king. I have the right to lead. That's when they're split. So they both still agree on the same Quran, same Allah, and same Muhammad. So there is not really a difference between them when it comes to Sharia and the religion. The battle between them is just a battle of power. And yes, one way or another, one of them needs to get rid of the rest, which at the moment, Shias are a very tiny percentage, which is basically just Iran and a very tiny number in Pakistan and India. But it was at a point of no way they would become brothers. But an imam in Islamic Republic of Iran called upon all Sunni Muslims to join Shia Muslims to take over the West about a year ago, which I published an article and a video about it. At the moment, they're not fighting each other. They're fighting together to take over the West. After that is when the real battle will start.
Powerful. Can we get you back? You're fascinating.
Absolutely. It'd be my honor.
Well, thank you. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out Anni's website, liveuptofreedom.com. Check out her video, The Solution to Stop Islam. Her testimony is phenomenal. I look forward to having you back. Also, check out the American Truth Project. She's the national director for that. God bless you, Anni, for all your work and your boldness. I look forward to having you back many times. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you so much. Be safe.